how do you see Tony Ferguson, Conor McGregor going? How do you see that fight playing out?
My gosh, the thing is about Conor is he's such a puzzle. He's so difficult to figure out, and I've underestimated Conor. I'll admit it. I've underestimated him many times. Mm-hmm. And he's shocked me. He's really surprised me. And so I don't want to underestimate him. I think that what Conor McGregor has is a skill set that next to none have when it comes to the trash talking, when it comes to really getting under someone's skin. Not just trash talking, not just empty. A lot of fighters are doing what I would call empty trash talking, where it's like they're saying stuff to try to create buzz and get the fights that they want, but nobody's really believing it. Where Conor McGregor he finds a way to bother the people that he's going to fight to the point where they probably lose sleep over it. And they're pissed or they're stressed, or he finds whatever it is that would cause them to possibly lose a fight. And I still believe that fighting is 90% mental and 10% physical. Maybe more mental. You could be physically prepared and the best athlete in the best shape of your life, but if you don't have the right mindset, none of that matters. It makes zero difference how great you are. We all know those guys in the gym that are like, oh man, if that guy could just fight the way that he trains in the gym, like he'd kill everybody. But he's just not that guy. When push comes to shove, he can't pull it together. Well, or she. Conor McGregor knows how to disassemble people mentally. And therefore, he is always a riddle. Like, I don't know how to really put him on the weigh scale with everybody else. I mean, skill set wise, I still think that Tony Ferguson is a better fighter overall. He's done more in this division. He's really shown that he's very, very well rounded. He's been doing this a lot longer than Conor McGregor, but Conor McGregor continues to evolve. He continues to impress, and he has this crazy ability to freak people out before they fight him. So I don't know. I feel for Mark Hunt because I see the situation two ways. One, in the fighter's shoes, and two, in the person who wants to look out for Mark Hunt more than he is obviously capable of doing himself. I think that Mark Hunt deserves to be more a part of his children's life and hopefully his grandchildren's, and not be quote unquote punchy, which is the road that he's headed down if he continues to take this kind of punishment. And he's a heavyweight. He's getting hit by other heavyweights. Like, the amount of damage that man has sustained to his brain is astronomical. And it's evident. He's even admitting to having these symptoms. This is early onset symptoms that it's just going to lead, they're going to get worse. They're not going to get better, with age, like his memory loss and things like that. That's all going to get worse. And I understand some fighters want to fight it out to the bitter end. And Mark Hunt is probably a prime example of that, and he's too tough for his own good. He wants to continue to do this, but he's been contemplating retirement, as you said, for a very, very long time, and now it's to the point where someone else has got to kind of step in and say, Mark, enough is enough. And I hate to say that, because I feel like if someone were doing that for me as a fighter, it would piss me off too. I would be livid. I'd be like, no, I'm tough. I'm fine. I'm good. I've got this. I know what I'm talking about. I've been doing this sport long enough. Trust me. But it's just so evident in this case that it's like, come on, man. What else do you have to prove? Like, you're doing all right. You're good. You're in a great financial position. Like, take your parting gift from the UFC, and, if they're still willing to make light of that, and go spend some time with your family. Get out of here. You've done enough. Like, you're a legend. Great. Good job. But go home and go enjoy the time you have with your family. Like, walk away. You're a legend. Get out of here.
So here's where I stand on this issue. Demetrius Johnson winning. If you guys didn't see it, now Ben Askren called it something else, so I don't know exactly what the technical term for it is, but I thought it looked to me like a suplex or the beginning of one. And what he did was he got his hips up underneath Ray Borg, popped him, drives Ray Borg into the air. If someone's behind you and they throw you in the air, what's your natural instinct? Your natural instinct is to reach your hands out to the side of you to grab something to brace your fall. And then as the person is coming down, he lets them go. He snatches the arm and then sits for the arm bar. You saw Borg try to hit a hitchhiker escape, and he couldn't do it. And the hitchhiker escape is something, Marissa, do you know what that is?
The hitchhiker.
The hitchhiker escape?
No.
Did you ever see Rich Franklin versus Travis Lutter?
I have not. It's before my time a little bit.
Okay, so basically what happens is if someone is armbarring you, there is a way out of it. There's a way you can roll out of it. And I'll put it to you this way. If I'm armbarring you, Marissa, and you are to my left, right? I am leaning back. You are to my left. I'm obviously sitting on my rear end. This is not an armbar from the guard. You would take your left leg and you would step all the way over and around towards my legs, and that would rotate your hips over, and it would change the angle of the armbar. It's called the hitchhiker escape. But it's famous, and everybody learns it in jiu-jitsu. But here's the truth of it. When Rich Franklin fought Travis Lutter, he kind of knew that Lutter was probably going to get a takedown. And he knew Lutter was probably going to pass guard and probably try to set up a submission. So he didn't really, he fought him on it, but not too hard. But when Lutter went to the mount and sat for the arm, Franklin immediately, like clockwork, sat for the hitchhiker escape and got it. And then from there began to pound on Travis Lutter because you completely take away the armbar. Okay? If someone has set in the armbar, it's locked in, and then they tell you to sit or to roll out, step over for the hitchhiker escape, it's very, very hard to get, if not impossible. And you actually saw, did you see how Ray Borg tried to twist?
Yep.
It was the same scenario. Mighty Mouse on top, Ray Borg to his left. Ray Borg took his left leg and tried to rotate his hips all the way over. But when your head and your arm and your shoulder are completely trapped, it just won't go. It just won't go. And so he eventually was forced to tap when he eventually got it. But that just tells you that, Demetrius is able to do, that's a pro wrestling move. Every once in a while in mixed martial arts, you get these moments, don't you? You get Anthony Pettis running off a wall. You get Demetrius Johnson throwing a guy in the air. And coincidentally, those two events happened in title fights in the 5th round, didn't they? There's something about these 5th round title fights that bring the best out of some of these really creative competitors. It was a marvelous moment for him. But here's my question basically to you guys is at 844-796-7874. Is Demetrius Johnson your number one pound-for-pound fighter, and is he the greatest of all time? I am perfectly willing to give him, Marissa, pound-for-pound best. I don't really feel like that's very controversial, especially with John Jones doing whatever the hell John Jones is doing and whatever else you want to say about his career at the moment. The greatest of all time one, I'm not saying is not true. Right? I'm not declaring Mighty Mouse is not the greatest of all time. What I'm declaring is I can see a case for it. I don't know that I can make the best one because I don't feel like we've really gone far enough in evaluating those other runs. In other words, what's harder to do? Beat the 9 guys consecutively that George St. Pierre did, or the 11 guys that Demetrius did? Right? And one of the ways I was trying to measure this through statistics, such as they are, there's less statistics and more sort of these fairly low-level qualitative measurements. I haven't gone through and finished it yet, but one of the things that's sort of curious to me is how many years was a guy fighting before he fought Demetrius, and how many Zuffa fights did they have? Now, at 125, how many Zuffa fights they had is not the most indicative thing in the world, because a lot of these guys were fighting at 135 or 125 before the WEC had these divisions, or before there even was a WEC doing what it was doing. So it's not exactly the best comparison. But what you do kind of see a little bit of is the guys like Benavidez and Dodson, they're about as legit as they come in terms of resumes. That's really, those are just as good as basically anybody St. Pierre or Silva fought. I think that's pretty fair, actually. But some of the other ones that make it a little bit more questionable. Ray Borg didn't make his MMA debut until 2012. Some other guys like John Moraga had only fought for a few years before he was fighting Demetrius Johnson. There was some of these guys did not have a lot of years in MMA and did not have many fights in any kind of Zuffa level organization before they fought him. So to me, it's like, am I perfectly willing to believe under a greater level of inspection that Demetrius' resume holds up? Yes, I am. I just don't feel like we've really done the homework to properly inspect that at this point. And I think more to the point, after every one of these fights, in the glowing aftermath of somebody's win, we're lathering ourselves up in the glory, which is a totally understandable reaction. We're all fight fans, right? This is what we do. But I think we got to take a step back and wait a second and say, I'm not declaring it's not true. I'm perfectly willing to believe it's true. What I want to see, Marissa, is a more full-throated case for it, given some numbers and some evidence. And I just haven't seen that put together yet. So this is my point. We need to parse what it means for those guys, and that's difficult. But I don't think just saying 11 is greater than 10. Yeah, but which 11, which 10? They're not all the same.